The mysteries, legends, and lore of Easter Island. Tucked away in the southeastern corner of the Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the Chilean coast, lies one of the world's most mystifying islands, Easter Island. Known locally as Rapa Nui, this small, triangular piece of volcanic land is most famous for its almost 1,000 massive stone statues called Moai that dot the island's perimeter. But there are also countless other archaeological wonders, native legends, and unsolved mysteries that make Easter Island an endlessly fascinating place. We'll explore some of the most intriguing aspects of Easter Island's history and culture, from theories about what happened to the original native population, to the meaning behind the iconic Moai statues, to tales of mystical powers and rituals. Read on to learn more about this isolated island that continues to capture the imagination of the world with its aura of enigma and wonder. The first settlers of Rapa Nui, according to oral traditions and legends passed down through native Rapa Nui culture. The original settlers of the island were led by Chief Hodum Madua, who embarked on a long voyage across the sea until he eventually came upon Rapa Nui. He brought with him his extended family and followers, their crops and livestock, and all their worldly possessions to establish a new home on the remote island around 9001000 AD. Archaeological evidence also supports that Rapa Nui was settled by Polynesians, most likely from the Marquesas or Society Islands regions. Early inhabitants thrived on the island for many centuries, developing a complex, hierarchical society centered around family groups called clans. They cultivated sweet potatoes, yams, taro, sugarcane, and bananas as part of a subsistence agricultural economy. One of their most important food sources was the Polynesian rat. The natives also fished along the coasts and raised chickens. But perhaps most significantly, they built the magnificent Moai statues from compressed volcanic ash found in a quarry at a site called Rano Raraku, in the interior crater of an extinct volcano. The tallest of the Moai erected measured over 30 feet high and weighed over 80 tons. How exactly? An isolated population with no contact from the outside world not only created these mammoth statues, but also managed to transport them several miles and stand them upright across the island, continues to perplex experts to this day. The mysterious downfall of Rapa Nui society. For many centuries, native island culture seemed to flourish in relative isolation on Rapa Nui. So what happened to cause the drastic collapse of their previously stable and sustainable society? By the 18th century, when Europeans first made contact with the island, the native population had dwindled down to just a few thousand people struggling to survive. And the practice of making and transporting Moai had been completely abandoned, the fallen and toppled statues left as they lay across the landscape. There are numerous theories proposed by researchers about what factors could have led to this societal demise and population decline, though it still remains somewhat of a mystery. 1. Environmental destruction and overuse of resources, as more and more forests were cleared for agriculture and logs were harvested to transport Moai. Loss of trees caused erosion and depletion of nutrients in the soil, leading to an inability to sustain food crops. 2. Introduction of invasive species. European and South American explorers brought diseases, rats, and livestock that killed natives and destroyed crops. 3. Warfare and infighting. Internal fighting erupted between different clans and kinship groups, devastating the population. 4. Slave raiding. Many Rapa Nui, especially women, were captured and taken away as slaves, which significantly reduced population. 5. Overinvestment in Moai. Building. Enormous effort and excessive resource expenditure was directed towards statue construction and transport for reasons still not fully understood. When resources became scarce, the Rapa Nui could no longer sustain basic needs for survival. 6. Natural disasters. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, or other environmental catastrophes may have also impacted resources and infrastructure. In reality, it was likely a combination of multiple complex factors that eventually led to the fall of what was previously a thriving civilization. Trying to reconstruct exactly how and why a society as advanced and successful as the primeval Rapa Nui ultimately failed so drastically continues to intrigue researchers from various fields of study. The lingering question of what really happened echoes the overarching enigma of Easter Island itself, the mystery behind the Moai. Arguably, the most iconic image and inspiring relic tied to Easter Island is that of the majestic Moai, the huge monolithic human figures carved from compressed volcanic ash, or tuff, that stand erected like sentinels along most of coastline. Nearly 1,000 Moai once existed, though now just over 900 have been documented by archaeologists. The exact purpose and significance behind the Moai tradition still sparks considerable academic debate and remains one of the great enduring mysteries of the island. Various theories have been proposed about what motivated their original carving and placement across the landscape. Moai served as status symbols for powerful families or chiefs, with bigger and more statues demonstrating greater power, prestige, and wealth. They were likely commissioned by chiefs not only to honor ancestors, but also as competitive displays of superiority between different kin groups. The statues functioned as fertility symbols, since the Moai design appears to represent mythical founders from oral histories who were remembered as strong, virile progenitors of various clans. The Moai were placed on stone platforms where certain rituals took place, facing inwards towards villages, as symbolic protectors of communities. Rows of Moai called Ahu along the coast may have indicated territorial boundaries belonging to each tribe, serving as boundary markers signaling control and ownership of land and marine resources by competing groups. Their stony faces, staring out towards the ocean, also perhaps warded off enemies. Some anthropologists argue for spiritual representations where the statues were regarded as actual incarnations of sacred ancestors who physically transformed into stone sculptures upon their death. Moai housed the living spirit of the dead chieftain, so positioning of them on platforms conducted a kind of ancestor worship through the ages. Among the most fascinating and sensational notions put forth by some alternative scholars is the idea that natives etched intricate images and symbols found on some Moai signifying complex esoteric wisdom about astronomy, navigational charts, solstice alignment, sacred geometry, chakra energies, fields, and even extraterrestrial contact or psychic powers. While highly speculative, if true, it suggests the existence of a spiritually advanced knowledge system yet to still be deciphered. Of course, the Moai likely represented a combination of political, spiritual, familial, territorial, and other cultural meanings for the Rapa Nui people. Figuring out the mystifying message they were intended to convey across time and space remains one of Easter Island's most puzzling riddles. The legend of the Tangata Manu bird cult. Native island mythology and tradition are replete with stories about the revered Tangata Manu, meaning birdman in Rapa Nui language. The legend tells of a founding hero named Hodu Matua who arrived on the island aboard a canoe called Mamari with his wife and extended family group. When they reached shore, his wife wanted to bring along some chickens they had been transporting, so they could lay eggs and sustain the population. Hodu instead instructed that the chickens should be set free into the wild and allowed to populate the island naturally. But his defiant wife chose to hide some chicks secretly under her robes and release them secretly later. Anyways, when Hodu found out, he was so angry that he ordered his warriors to go hunt down and kill all the introduced chickens. His wife pleaded for him to spare their lives, which he eventually agreed to, on the condition that she would have to protect the egg nests and harvest the birds herself. From then on, she took on the mystical role of the Tangata Manu, literally transforming into a half-woman, half-bird creature who would nurture the precious chicken population they depended on. Her tomb is believed to be located on the small islet of Motunui, just south of the main island. And ancient petroglyphs depicting what looks like human-bird hybrid forms have been found on Rapa Nui and are linked to the legend. Over time, the Tangata Manu evolved into a revered cult figure imbued with magical religious significance in native lore. Elaborate rituals known as the Birdman competition were held each spring at a sacred site called Orongo on the island's southwest rim, where participants would climb down oceanside cliffs, swim across shark-infested waters to Motunui and back while trying to retrieve a tern egg without breaking it to present intact as an offering. Winners were bestowed sacred honors and privileges as the Tangata Manu's earthly representative for a year-long reign. The myths of Hodu Matua, his defiant wife, and the origins of the Tangata Manu capture core themes of early Rapa Nui society. The ancestral chieftain founders, the precious mana or spiritual power of the Rapa Nui chicken population, and merging of human and bird realms through ritual incarnation and transformation. Unlocking the Rongorongo script. One of the most intriguing and cryptic mysteries of Easter Island relates to the native writing system known as Rongorongo. Rongorongo consisted of over 2,000 pictographic glyphs carved into wooden tablets and, according to some accounts, recited in chants during certain ceremonies. But despite much analysis by generations of scholars, linguists, cryptographers, and codebreakers, the Rongorongo texts have never been successfully deciphered or verified as true writing. No definitive links to any known oral language or interpretations have emerged. It remains one of the few writing systems around the world considered completely undeciphered to this day. Its existence raises so many compelling questions. Was Rongorongo a completely original script, invented only on Rapa Nui, or introduced through cultural diffusion? Does it represent true writing, encoding spoken sounds and words, or solely mnemonic memory aids? Does it contain philosophical knowledge, sacred rituals, spiritual beliefs, poetry, mythology, or clan histories as some suggest? If it was utilized by specially trained chanters, how was esoteric knowledge passed down within a purely oral culture? And what caused its eventual abandonment? And most tantalizing of all, just what deep secrets might it reveal, if ever finally unlocked? The mystery of the Rongorongo tablets feeds into broader debates around just how sophisticated and enlightened Rapa Nui society truly was before contact with the outside world marked its downfall. For now, any insights it may hold remain obscured, locked away within these silent artifacts whose power to illuminate or rewrite history awaits a master key that has confounded all who have tried. The haunted ruins of Akivi. Dotting the windswept landscape of Rapa Nui alongside the majestic Moai are thousands of ancient house platforms. Made from stacked fieldstone called ahupoki, poki functioned as family residences during primeval times. Most ahupoki now stand dilapidated and abandoned, evoking the lonely ghost towns of vanished peoples. But there is one particular structure known as Akivi that some believe possesses an even more haunted and foreboding energy. Akivi is made up of 7 restored stone platforms on a hillside overlooking the southwestern coast. Oral traditions state that these platforms house 7 community astrologers, who carefully observe celestial bodies and deliver divine prophecies to the kings and priests. Inside some of the enclosures are odd-looking stones placed strategically for sight lines, pointing towards the rising and setting positions of certain stars and constellations used as a solar calendar. Whether it functioned as highly sacred stargazing site for reading the future course of fate or events, some visitors to Akivi report experiencing a profoundly eerie ambience permeating the area. A deep sense of unseen presence and heavy weight on the atmosphere that cannot be attributed to its astronomical heritage alone. Locals speak of restless aku-aku, or ancestral spirits who still frequent and protect it. The haunted stones of Akivi remain one of many mystifying places on an island cloaked in legend and shadowed histories. The paranormal powers of the Rei Miro priests, the religious belief system of the ancient Rapa Nui civilization, revolved around worship of forefather gods and veneration of ancestral spirits who could exert influence from beyond the mortal plane. Powerful clans claim divine descent from high chiefs said to have originally settled on Rapa Nui with the first voyaging canoes. The preservation of sacred mana or life force was sustained through pious tribute and ritual observance, conducted by an elite caste of hereditary priests known as Rei Miro, who acted as intermediaries between this world and the gods. According to legend, the Rei Miro possessed tremendous psychic and spiritual abilities, including healing powers, shape-shifting skills, telepathic communication, manipulation of energy forces, and clairvoyant prognostication about future events or outcomes. They would enter deep trance states connecting with paranormal realms, sometimes while secreted away inside special caves and caverns scattered around volcanic craters and ancient sites. The monks of Easter Island thus served both worldly political interests as well as more arcane sacred duties, like reading portents, interpreting dreams, and aligning human affairs with the changeable forces of nature and cosmos. Some researchers have speculated on a possible psychic link between the reputed extrasensory perceptions of the Rei Miro and the focus on vision and stare embedded in the Moai, which represent deified ancestors watching over their descendants from realms beyond, perhaps further investigating preternatural phenomena tied to Rapa Nui's patron spirits. And venerated statue emissaries may shed more light on the island's pervading aura of mystery. The outlandish alien conspiracy theories, considering all the bewildering enigmas and astounding marvels found throughout Easter Island already described. It should come as no surprise that more fringe notions also abound, perhaps influenced by iconic imagery of massive stone heads left abandoned across a remote Pacific isle. Evoking mythic themes of a vanished civilization, the island has become a hotspot for dramatic tales of higher cosmic connections and extraterrestrial intervention by those prone towards conspiratorial interpretations. Among the more radical conjectures circulated in paranormal circles are claims that master architects behind Rapa Nui's architectural wonders may have originated from advanced alien civilizations, or lost continents like Lemuria, who taught indigenous groups mystical engineering arts later memorialized through sacred structures. Statues erroneously thought to be wearing strange helmets were ancient astronauts equipped for interstellar travel. Elongated heads possibly represented alien-human interbreeding experiments, and Rongo-Rongo texts contained extraterrestrial revelations or messages to future generations warning of imminent global cataclysms. While lacking any substantive basis in fact, the otherworldly mystique wrapped around Easter Island seems likely to continue feeding sensational theories for those attracted towards connecting earthly uncertainty with cosmic possibility. Its aura of eerie wonder, floating all alone out in the vast Pacific, does spark the imagination in primal ways difficult to rationalize through prosaic explanation alone. In the end, Easter Island's profound enigmas may point less towards any single unified answer, and more towards timeless questions of shifting reality that define the human compulsion towards restless mystery itself. The allure of uncertainty. What is it about Easter Island that keeps us perpetually wondering in the face of so much uncertainty? This tiny speck of volcanically birthed terrain, barely 24 kilometers across at its broadest length, and home now to just over 5,000 modern-day inhabitants, continues to utterly captivate explorers, researchers, adventure seekers and myth lovers drawn towards uncovering its ancient secrets for over 300 years since first European contact. Yet, despite exhaustive decades of archaeological excavation and scientific scrutiny, so much about the island's past remains elusive and undefinable. The mysteries endure as to how, why, and when its unique stone marvels were made, moved, and eventually abandoned. We simply cannot fully crack the code of a supposedly primitive culture that created such marvels of antiquity, apparently lost through cycles of collapse and rebirth. From the haunting beauty of its brooding landscape populated by stoic Moai, to whispered legends of mystical rituals and spectral ancestors, to symbols hinting at occult wisdom from celestial realms, Easter Island conveys an uncertainty between reality and illusion that compels our imaginations towards magically infused history. The island presents a microcosm of sacred geography, isolated from outside influence for over 1,000 years. Until causes still unknown delivered the downfall of its primeval civilization, our secrets locked in linguistic keys, psychic channels, or cosmic myth, waiting activation through intuitive reconnection versus rational conquest alone. Does our quest for finite answers miss transcendent qualities in Rapa Nui's living mystery that cannot ever be pinned down? Without losing their strange, alluring essence, reflecting the unknown inside us all. What keeps pulling us back towards Easter Island is more than just scientific curiosity or desire to reconstruct vanished culture. It also speaks to that irrepressible impulse within human consciousness reaching towards realms that defy cause and effect, rationale. Like an unfinished fable or dormant portal, ebbing and flowing in imaginative tides, Rapa Nui retains an organic resonance within our collective experience of reality still unfolding. Its aura seems seated in our longing towards communion with sacred wonder sustaining the soul. In the end, perhaps Easter Island's impenetrable mysteries can never be solved, only continuously wondered over as a unique sanctum recalling mythic unity, now fragmented through space and time's inexorable passage. Yet always we remain drawn by distant echoes of haunting beauty and uncertain possibility, symbolized through the majestic, silent Moai, who will keep watching and waiting as endless vessels of promise.